Good evening, everyone. Who's with us tonight? I see Hilton with us, Eitan with us, Frank with us.
Said you were leaving, so she talked to.
I see Dr. Les with us. Hello, Dr. Les. How are
Shalom,
you?
Rav. How are you? How are you, Rav?
Said it. She couldn't send it, so she moved back in. She would never have thrown him out.
Bechavod, Dr. Les.
Okay. So, Rav, I don't know if our listeners, if they're aware, but Israel was in the under-21 semi-finals, and unfortunately, but it was an incredible game. We lost to England 3-0, but just to reach that stage is incredible. It's unbelievable. Can be very proud of our under-21 national soccer team. Something a bit more serious, you know, we've been seeing what happened in Jenin. That's a hotbed of terrorists that have sent out these youngsters of 17, 18 to kill Yidden, and we went in to prevent further attacks. And it's just unbelievable to see the hypocrisy and the double standards of the world media, where they condemn Israel and they say they've used, even the UN, excessive force. When we see what's happening in France, at the same time, when the French have been so extreme against the rioters in France, and yet there you don't have this condemnation of the French. In fact, when people said to the French, you shouldn't use such excessive force, they said, we know how to deal with our own situation. Please don't tell us what to do. But France is very quick to condemn Israel. It's just unbelievable. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but BBC, they interviewed Naftali Bennett, and the anchor lady who was asking the question says, why does the Israeli army enjoy killing Palestinian children? It was horrendous to say it's a blood libel, basically. And he answered her very well. And he said, how would you like it if these 17-year-olds that you call children would come to kill your family? Would you still call them children? Anyway, the BBC later apologized, but you know, the damage was done. The blood libel was out there, but they have apologized, and it's just unbelievable. Now, the Independent newspaper had a cartoon comparing what happened in Jenin with Ukraine. So it's unbelievable to see such double standards and such. But you know what, Rav? The truth is, I just was here on the way to Hanof. We opened up a kollel. We had mainly Mizrahi together with Toldos Aaron, all together opening up a kollel here in Yerushalayim. And you see, we have to be united. Unfortunately, there's a lot of demonstrations against the so-called reforms. But you know what? We will B'chol davar dor, Amdu Aleinu, as we all know. But Hashem will save us. And as long as we're united, as long as we have emunah in Hashem, Am Yisrael Chai. And we will continue.
Sure. Amen. Shukor. Dr. Les, I think that I'm going to add up in the show what you mentioned and how important is it for us to be united. But the subject of the show today is Tamuz. What does Tamuz mean? And that's where we're going to go to. Be'ezrat Hashem, today we're going to speak about Tamuz. We'll try to understand what does Tamuz mean. And that's going to be the subject of the show. Let me just look here. What's happening? No, we're Okay. Is everyone in? Can you hear me now? I lost myself for 1 second. I don't know where I was. Sorry about it. Okay. So tonight we're going to speak about Tamuz. What is the word Tamuz? That's what we're going to speak tonight. Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to explain the word Tamuz, how that's applicable for us, the month of. I just need to mute everyone or mute it. Yeah, now I can continue. Yeah, because it was a bit of a noise here. Now I'm going to continue. So I would like, first of all, to dedicate the shiur in the soul of Esther Kaden Bat Ketia, Mordechai ben Rahma, Harav אברהם חיים בן אליעזר יעקב, תמר בת זהבה, יעקב סלומון בן פרחה, דבורה רות בת בילה, שושה בלינה בת מרדכי בצלאל, מלכה רג'ינה בת ג'ויה, קטי גורג'יה בת פרחה. Also, I would like to dedicate the shiur in health of מנשה נג'י בן פרחה, ליאורה בת מרים, הרב משה בן בהיה בתיה, הרב משה בן דבורה, הרב אברהם בן מרים, הרב שלמה יהודה בן דליה, דבורה בת אסתר, אורנה בלומה בת מרים, שיינה קיילה בת חנה, מרדכי דוד בן לאה, חנה, חיים נחום בן פסע רזה, אהובה קדן בת טלי אסתר, צבי בן חווה, שמואל מאיר בן שושה בלימה, מרים בת זלדה ליבה, משה אברהם בן חנה ריבה, חיה ציפורה בת רחל, איילה עדן בת רבקה, טובה ליבה בת רחל, נחום זאב בן שיינה רבקה, יהושע חיים בן חיה לאה, וחנה משה בת רבקה זלדה. Please God, רפואה שלמה to all of them. We are in a month of Tamuz. We actually started the 3 weeks. Just before, I would like just to explain something and then we go straight to our show. You know that the 3 weeks in Hebrew called Yemei Ben HaMetzarim. What it means? Yemei Ben HaMetzarim. For us just to understand the concept, the idea behind it. It's very important. Metzarim, it's Milshon Tsar. Tsar in English, it means narrow. It means that those 3 weeks from Yud Zayin B'Tamuz, from the 17th of Tamuz to the 9th of Av, they're very narrow. What it means very narrow? Hazal explained that we don't have a lot to plan those days. That means the Midat Adin, the judgment, is very strict on those days. It's not like rest of the year. If someone done something wrong, there is more favoritism. Those 3 weeks are very narrow, and that's what Hazal tell us, Mishenichnas Av mema'atin besimcha. We try to show more morning time from the beginning of month. But the 3 weeks, called Yemei Ben HaMetzarim, that it means like a narrow alley, that you don't have a lot of option to turn to go to the right, to go to the left. It's very narrow, only one person can go. So that means that on those 3 weeks, we have to do a lot of mitzvot, not to do averot. That's what it means, Yemei Ben HaMetzarim, that I wanted to explain the name of the word Metzarim. Now, the word Tamuz, the month of Tamuz that we are now, where is the source for it? So I need to do introduction, and then I will explain. We have to understand, Hazal in Talmud Masechet, Talmud Bavli Masechet Rosh Hashanah, okay? Perek Aleph Halacha Bet. That means the Talmud, we have 2 Talmud, the Babylonian one and the Jerusalem one, the Yerushalmi. In Masechet Rosh Hashanah, in chapter 1, law number 2, Hazal tell us something very interesting. We have to understand what Hazal said for us to understand. And it's like this. Amar Rabbi Hanina say, Shmot HaChodashim alu beyadam miBavel. Rabbi Hanina say that the name of the months that we have today, for example, Tishrei, Heshvan, Kislev, and etc., all of those months that we have today, they actually brought up from Babylon. Alu beyadam miBavel. They got it in Babylon. And what does it mean for us to understand? All of those months that we have that been named today, Tishrei, Heshvan, Kislev, Tevet, Shvat, Ve'adar, and etc. All of those months that we have, they're actually a Babylonian name and a Persian name. What does it mean? When Ezra Sofer came to Eretz Israel after the destruction of the first temple, that there was in exile in Babylon, after that, okay, they came to Eretz Israel to build Bet HaMikdash. They brought with them him, and Chachmei Israel constitute the name of the month. Because before that, before Ezra Sofer and Chachmei Israel constitute for us the name for the month, Chazal used to call the month like this: B'chodesh harishon letzet Israel mimitzrayim. That means on the first month that the Jewish people left Egypt, Chazal later on, our sages later on, constitute and given it the name of Nisan. That month's called Nisan. Okay, so before Ezra Sofer and our sages, they used to give it the first months. The Torah actually start counting the months that the first months in Nisan. The months that we have today, that is Tishrei, Heshvan, Kislev, okay? All of those months that we have today, that's according, okay, that to Ezra Sofer and the sages, that actually what they done, they call it according to the from the day of the creation. That means they work it out what was the first day from the creation, and that's how they work it out. And so if we look, there is a difference from the Torah months and what our sages constitute for us. That means Ezra Sofer and Bet Dino. Okay, now that we understand that, we have to understand the word Tamuz. Tamuz, it's actually a Babylonian name. And there is something very interesting. Where is the source to that name, that it's called Tamuz? Why is it called Tamuz? What does Tamuz mean? So the source to it comes from the prophet Yehezkel. The prophet Yehezkel, in his book in chapter 8, verse 14, he said like this. Let me look at it here. Hanashim yoshvot umevakot et Tamuz. What does it mean? The prophet Yehezkel saying in his book that the woman sitting and crying Tamuz. Who's Tamuz? We have to understand. The prophet Yehezkel actually described how the Almighty rebuked the Jewish people that they used to worship idol worshiping. That means that they used to work Avodah Zarah. And one of the Avodah Zarah that used to be in that time used to call Tamuz. And here the prophet described how the Almighty rebuked the children of Israel, how they used to worship the Tamuz, that was Avodah Zarah. We're going to explain later on what is Tamuz, how they used to worship. But we have to understand what is the month of Tamuz. And if we'll understand that, that will help us to understand the rest of the show. We have to understand that in the month of Tamuz, the spy gone to the land of Eretz Israel, okay, to tour the land of Eretz Israel. And when they came, they caused the children of Israel to cry, and that was in Tisha B'Av. Chazal call it that the crying in Hebrew, it's called bichia. What it means, bichia? Bichia is crying. But what is the root of the word bichia? That means the root of the word bichia, Chazal explained, that it's milshon, confusion. That means that's mevucha. That means when the spy came from the land of Eretz Israel, the Tisha B'Av, and given the report what they saw, They confused. They was confused. They was confused, and they confused the nation. And that's what caused the nation to cry. As I'll explain that if you look, these two kinds of crying. People cry from happiness. People cry from sadness. That means if people have pain, people got hurt, whatever the case is, they lost something that's very close to them, they cry. People cry from happiness. If something great happened to them and they're very happy, they're very excited, they show the emotion and they cry. What is crying mean? Hazal explain, our sages explain that the word bichia, it's milshon mevucha, confusion. When people get confused, they don't see correctly what's happening. Or if they see correctly, they cannot analyze exactly what's happening. So Hazal say, when the spy came back from Egypt, when the spy returned, when the spy came back from Eretz Israel, from the land of Eretz Israel, what happened there? Hazal said that what they saw in Eretz Israel, they looked at the land of Eretz Israel confused. That means that the way that they looked at it confused. What it means looked at it confused? Hazal explained they didn't look at the good of Eretz Israel. What Hazal say that the spy done, they were so confused that they look at the negativity of the land of Eretz Israel. What does it mean? That they brought with a report, and with that report that they brought, we all know that they brought a full branch of grapes. And that can help us to understand very important thing, Rabotai. Hazal say that in a wilderness, when the children of Israel used to sacrifice, okay, they used to take wine, they used to sprinkle wine. Where? On an altar. The Mefarshim asked, in a wilderness, where is the children of Israel going to get wine? Where was a vineyard in a wilderness? How did Bnei Israel have for 40 years wine in a wilderness? Beautiful question, huh? Listen to that answer. Hazal explained that when the spies gone to Eretz Israel, they return with grapes. Miracle happened, Hazal explained in a midrash, that it was, they took one grape, and one grape they make from it wine that lost for 40 years in a wilderness. That means it was enough grape from one branch for 40 years to use in a wilderness to sprinkle the wine on an altar. But the spy that looked at Eretz Israel in a negative way didn't look at it positively. They make the wrong impression. And they brought the report to the children of Israel, and the children of Israel cried. Why? Because they was confused. They didn't look at the picture in a positive way because the spies confused them. Said the Mefarshim that the Avodah Zarah that called Tamuz, the Avodah Zarah, the idol worshipping that used to call Tamuz, it still exists today. And our job today, maybe they're not sacrificing to that idol, but that used to confuse people looking at things. And our job in a month of Tamuz, said the Mefarshim, is to look at things positively. Each one of us have to look one at each other with a positive way. Where does it start? It starts first of all at home, that the husband look at the wife in a positive way. It starts with the children, that the parents look at their kids positively. It starts at work, when you look at your colleagues positively. It starts in a congregation, when we look one at each other in a positive way. Chazal said that that's the month of Tamuz. It's a month of confusion. It's a month that have to confuse. Chazal say, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell the children of Israel, I'm giving you the land of Eretz Israel, Eretz Zavat Halab Uduvash, the land of milk and honey. What do you need to go and spy? What do you need to go and look? If HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell you he's giving you the best, you don't have to ask. And that's when Bnei Israel say Na'aseh v'nishma, will do, and then, we'll do first, and then we'll listen. We merit to receive the Torah. And if they merit to receive the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, imagine straight after the Exodus from Egypt, if we wouldn't ask so many questions, we wouldn't send a spy. In 3 days, we will enter the land of Eretz Israel, and then everything gonna be complete. The redemption gonna be complete. That's the problem. Say Chazal, that the month of Tamuz is the month that confusing people. It's months that you look at things not only positive, mainly negative. Our time and our job in this time, is to look at things and positive, to look at people, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to look at the good things at people, to be in unity once with each other. And that's what's called Tamuz. And that's the Avodah Zarah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rebuked the Jewish people. The month of Tamuz, although that it's a very narrow alley, you can't look at it positively and negatively. You have to look at it or positive or negative. Chazal tell us in the month of Tamuz, our job is to look at everything in a positive way. Thanks. Thank you. So Chazal explained how important is it to look at the month of Tamuz at one each other in a positive way, to give the benefit of the doubt, to try to encourage one each other, to live in peace and unity together. That's our job in the month of Tamuz. Okay, now we're going to start diving into the main show. Now that was the introduction that will help us to understand what's happening in Tamuz. Tamuz, a matter of fact, is the 10 months during the, in a month, the calculation of the month from the creation of the world, like we explained. But from the other day, if we look what the Torah called, if Torah called Nisan, Chodesh HaRishon, from the Exodus of Egypt, Barishon, לחודש לצאתם מארץ, בחודש הראשון לצאתם מארץ מצרים, it will come that the month of Tamuz will work out that it's the 4th month. Okay, now we understand that. But what is the word Tamuz mean? We have to understand. Before we go on, we have to understand what the word Tamuz mean. Rashi HaKadosh, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, he born in the city of Troyes in the north of France. He born 983 years ago. Also, the Malbim also wrote commentary on the Torah and the Tanakh. And the Malbim wrote a beautiful commentary on Sefer Yechezkel. He wrote a beautiful, beautiful commentary, what's going to happen before the Mashiach comes. I've done a show about it, maybe one day we'll do. The Malbim was Rabbi Meir Leibush ben Yehiel Weiser. He born in the Ukraine, plus minus, give it or take, around 214 years ago. Okay, and they both say in the commentary that the word Tamuz mean hot or heating. What does it mean? Chazal explain like this. When I say Chazal, I mean the commentary, they explain like this. And they say that the word Tamuz actually in Aramaic mean hot or heating. What does it mean by that? They say like this. He say that now in the northern hemisphere, it's summer. It's very hot. It's actually boiling. And the month of Tammuz is the most hottest month in the northern hemisphere right now. It's come to tell you that actually there is an pshat of the dvarim. I'm speaking now the pshat. In the northern hemisphere, it's very hot now. The month of Tammuz, another thing for us to understand, it's not a full month. It's never, the month of Tammuz is never a full month. There is always 29 days. I'm speaking according to the Jewish calendar, not the English calendar. So there is always 29 days on a month of Tammuz. It's called Chodesh Haser. That's in Hebrew how they call it. Now, if you look at the star sign of the month of Tammuz, it's the shape. It's called the star sign of Tammuz. It's called a crab. What does it mean? That means if you look at the star, at the galaxy, the shape, they make a shape of a crab. The star in the galaxy look like a crab. Hazal tell us, why is it dafka look like a crab? Hazal explain that the main reason that it's happened, that it's like this, I saw the commentary, by the way, from Rav Shlomo Zalman Kahana. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Kahana, born in Jerusalem, the same city that I born, he born 68 years ago. He studied in the same yeshiva that I studied. Okay, and he explained like this. He was a bit older than me, and he explained like this. He actually graduated 10 years before me, to be honest. 10 years before me, he graduated, if I'm not mistaken. And he explained like this. Listen what he says. He says, you know why they call that month in Hebrew a crab? It's called Sartan. Sartan in Hebrew, it's a crab, but also it's actually referred to something else. It's referred to the sickness that we call cancer. He said, you know why in heaven, that means in a galaxy, those stars in a galaxy shape, the shape of a cancer? It's to tell you that the Avodah Zarah, in a time of the first temple and a time of the second temple, penetrated into the Jewish religion like a cancer. And that's what the Almighty come to teach us. Look at the galaxy. See those shape of the star that look like a crab, what we call sartan. It's like a sickness. It's going to penetrate into the Jewish nation, to the Jewish religion, like a cancer. It's going to be a cancer and cause a lot of problem. Therefore, you have to be careful from idol worshiping. And that's what mean Tammuz. Okay? We all know that in the month of Tammuz, many tragedies happen to the Jewish people. I would like to start Dafka with a miracle that happened in Tammuz. Why? Because we have to understand, if we look at the month of Tammuz with a positive way instead of negative, and we do more mitzvot, we'll see that actually we can achieve a lot in the month of Tammuz. So the first thing we have to understand, in Gimel Betamuz, in the year 2488 from the creation, Yoshua bin Nun was entered the land of Israel, and he started fighting in Giv'on Dom, Be'emek Ayalon, and he stopped the sun and he stopped the moon for 36 hours. Why? Because if you wouldn't stop it, Shabbat will enter, and then he couldn't finish his war. To finish the war in Emek Ayalon, a miracle happened, and the sun and the moon stopped their circling, and the star sorry, and the sun was in a full. And that's how Yeshua ben Nun won the war, because he didn't want to desecrate Shabbat. So it was a great miracle that happened to the Jewish people. Another miracle that happened to the Jewish people, and you're all going to remember, in the 6th of Tamuz, in the year 1976, in the year 1976 and 4th of July, was the special operation, the special Israeli force that gone to Uganda, what they call Entebbe operation, the special forces that rescue those Jewish people and the non-Jewish people that been kidnapped, that kidnapped the Air France, plane. So those the miracle that happened. Tragedy that happened, and we have to explain that in the 2nd of Tamuz, lo alenu, by the authority of the church, they're given the authority to burn the Sifrei Torah in France by the King Philip. You know, King Philip in that time in Paris, when they burned the Sifrei Torah. In the 5th of Tammuz, Maharam Rothenburg, okay, that was ready to make Aliyah from Germany to Eretz Israel, being put to jail, okay, by the German. You die in Betamuz, you all know the 5 tragedy that happened, that Moshe Rabbeinu brought the first tablet, you know, that when he came down from the mountain, he saw Bnei Israel dancing around the golden calf, and then Butal Tamid, that the Korban Tamid, one of the most important Korban, if not the most important Korban, that used to be sacrificed in the morning and in the afternoon, that called the Korban Tamid, been canceled. The wall that surrounds the city of Jerusalem, okay, been broken, and the enemy start to penetrating on Yud Zayin Betamuz. The Apostomos Arasha burned the Holy Torah, lo alenu, on that time. And also there's a debate if it was Menashe, the king Menashe, or Apostomos that put the statue where? In the Echal. Echal is in Bet HaMikdash. But we have to understand now what exactly the prophet Yehezkel tells us. The prophet Yehezkel explained like this. He says that Vehanashim, the woman sitting, umevakot et Tamuz, those women that sit and crying the Tamuz. Why are they crying? Why are they confused? We have to understand what's happening here. So I saw a beautiful commentary that brought in Metudot David. Metudot David is a commentary that's been written by Rabbi David Altshuler. Rabbi David Altshuler, born in Galicia around 336 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. He started to write the commentary that's called Metudot David. He never finished it. His son, Hillel, he finished the commentary. He wrote most of the commentary on the Tanakh, but then he passed away. He couldn't finish it. His son Hillel finished it. And he explained like this: what kind of idols that called Tamuz? What kind of idol worshipping is Tamuz? So they explained Tamuz was a shape of a human being, and they made his eyes from lead. And the witchcrafting lady, the witchcraft woman, that used to put a lot of wood and used to light it. They used to have a small door at the back that they used to shove wood like an oven, and they used to light it. And the eyes of that Avodah Zarah used to melt, okay? And people used to come and say to those women, why is that idol crying? And they used to say, because they want you to sacrifice to him. and people used to bring food and all different things. And obviously those witchcraft women, okay, the sorcerers and magician used to take it for themselves. That's one interpretation. There's other interpretation that it's called Tamuz, that it used to look like that idol used to cry. From the heat, they used to see the eye melting. It's come to tell you, listen to that, what kind of avodah zarah it was. They used to boil it, that avodah zarah, and they used to take the babies and they put it on top of that boiling metal, and they used to sacrifice their kids, and the baby used to scream until he died. Okay, so we see that to that what caused the woman to cry. Other interpretation is that they say like this, that they used to boil, they used to burn the wood inside the avodah zarah. It used to be a shape of avodah zarah, that means idol, and they used to boil inside wood, and the smoke from the heat used to come through the eyes, and it looked like it's crying. What does it mean? It's come to tell us that the crying come to remind us the confusion that we mentioned earlier in the show. The months of Elul, it's all about confusion, crying. There is a crying, like we explained, that people cry from happiness. There's crying that we have from sadness. Vice versa, the word bechi milshon mevucha. The word crying in Hebrew, it's bechi, bichia. That causes a person to get confused, mevucha. Come now, the famous question that everyone can ask. I do not understand. If Tamuz is a name of avodah zarah, it's a name of idols, how did Ezra Sofer, the Chachmei Israel, that means Ezra Sofer, and the sages, decide to call a month on a name of avodah zarah? You understand the question? That's famous Christian that all the Mefarshim ask. So the Mefarshim explain like this. The Mefarshim say that the main reason that they call this month Tamuz, it's to remind the Jewish people that what caused in that month. This month that was confusing many people, that they caused them to cry because they look at the negative, to remind the Jewish people that they follow the idols, they worship idols. It's come to remind us to look at everything positively and not has v'shalom to worship idols. So Hazal call it Tamuz, not for nothing. It's to remind us not to fall to that trap again. And that's why they named this month Tamuz, because this month, there is a lot of light on it, that we're going to get to it now, but from the other way, if we're not going to take the positive, there is a lot of darkness on that month. Depends how we're looking at this month. So now that we understand that, let's move to the second stage. Let's look how is the pious people, the Hasidut, those that follow the Hasidut, what is their theory regarding the months of Elul, how they look at Elul. So Hazal explained that, a matter of fact, the Elul, the Tamuz, sorry, not Elul, Tamuz, does not reflect anything about Avodah Zarah. It's actually that it's come to show us and it's come to reflect to us, okay, what we can achieve in a month of Tamuz. That means that we can achieve, because the light that there is in a month of Tamuz in the northern hemisphere come into us, that in spirituality, people can achieve highest level of spirituality now. What does it mean? It means that if we take the month of Tamuz and we focus on it in a positive way, listen to that, we can achieve spiritually different light. What does it mean? Because in Tamuz, we say Nishberu Aluchot. What does it mean, Nishberu Aluchot? The first tablet that Moshe Rabbeinu brought, because they broke in Tamuz, we have a spiritual insight to understand oral Torah. And that was the first tablet. That it was, Rabotai, when he brought the tablet, call them Luchot, Torah Shebe'al Peh v'Torah Shebechtav, to understand. We now, in this month, if we work on ourselves spiritually, we can understand the oral Torah much better than any other month in a year. That's how the Hasidut explain. Rav Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, Zecher Tzadik v'Kadosh Livracha, in his list, he wrote a list regarding about different sources from great rabbis. What did they think about the months of Tammuz? And Rabbi Tzadok, and he writes in his list that he brings the opinion of Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Miluvlin. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Miluvlin, born around 200 years ago, plus minus, in his book Pri HaTzadik, okay, he explained that the light that we're getting in this month, because in the northern hemisphere, can affect the entire Jewish people to understand, and it's a remedy, the the oral Torah in a depth. That means if every person work on himself, sanctify himself, purify himself, and focus in Torah Shebe'al Peh, he can understand that better. If it's a Mishnah, if it's a Gemara, if it's the Mefarshim, if it's the Halachot, he can understand that much better. There is a book that's called Shem Mishmuel. Shem Mishmuel, it's Rabbi Shmuel Bornstein. He born around 167 years ago in Poland also. And he explained like this, that he said that the month of Tammuz, it's a month that the Jewish people can do tshuva, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gonna actually accept them for the tshuva, like Chodesh Elul. Why? He said that who done the tshuva and HaKadosh Baruch Hu immediately changes the decree? Reuven. Reuven, when he swapped the bed of his father, it means he put the bed of his mother, okay, Leah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that was a sin for him. But when he done tshuva for it, when he done tshuva for that, immediately HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgive him. Says Shem Mishmuel, you have to understand that the month of Tammuz, if people do tshuva, immediately HaKadosh Baruch Hu will accept them and he will consider him as tzaddikim, as long as they done proper tshuva. Another idea that bring the Shem Mishmuel, it say that we know that there is a big shine in the air. The light in the northern hemisphere is much longer. It's very hot. There's a lot of light in the northern hemisphere. It's come to tell you that if people are going to work on the spirituality, they can achieve much more they can achieve anywhere, any other time in a year. Why? Because the same, like the Shekhinah gone up, we can receive that divine to help us to understand the Torah. The Zohar HaKadosh explained that there is 3 months a year that they're actually not so good for the Jewish people. And he explained that this, and he explained that he said, Din Kasher, I'm frightened to say it, there's a bad judgment in the world. And the 3 months is Tammuz, Av, and Tevet. A matter of fact, the Mekubalim explain that part of the months of Tamuz, part of the months of Av, and part of the months of Tevet is a lot of judgment. And those, the 3 months, the Mekubalim explain, and the Midrash also bringing it, that Esav HaRasha took. He took 3 months. He wanted to take Elul. Yaakov Avinu managed to take it from him. Elul and Tishrei. So said the Zohar Kadosh, Dafka on this time, we have to be very, very careful. And now I would like to conclude what we spoke about so far. What is Tamuz? We explained that Tamuz is number 1. It's a month of confusion. It's a month that we should not get confused and look at things with what we see. We have to give the benefit of the doubt. I would like to tell a story, and with that, to develop it. The story actually happened in a bus stop in Eretz Israel. 2 Avrechim arrived to the bus stop, and in the bus stop was another person. And that person behaved very strangely. What he used to do, every second he used to spit on the floor. And as a matter of fact, when they saw it, they couldn't take it. And they make faces, and they hint to this person, how can you behave like this? It's mamash, you actually, it's a lo derech eretz. And the person continue for a while. And then they see that the person relaxed for a few minutes, and he approached them. And he said to them, listen to me, I have to explain to you something. I'm not doing it on purpose. What I'm doing, it's because I have a chemo, and usually I have tissue in my pocket. But unfortunately, all my tissue finished. And because he had the treatment of chemo, he cannot swallow the saliva that's coming. And usually you have a tissue, and he spit it inside. But because the tissue is finished, he can't swallow it. And if he swallow it, he might gonna die, gonna choke and die. He's spitting on the floor. But he's saying, usually I'm not like this. It's just that he have chemotherapy. Immediately, those 2 Avrechim that looked at him, those 2 guys, changed the way. They say, sorry to hear about it, what you're having, wish him a refuah shleima, and etc., and bless them. And what does it come to teach us? Rabotai, Tamuz is a month that makes us confused, makes us look at things negatively. We have to look in a positive eyes. Don't let our looking, our watching make us mistake. That means don't let what we see confuse us. That's what I'm trying to say. That means on a month of Tamuz, we have to judge everyone favorably, especially in a month of Tamuz, because it's a month of light. And the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and understand that if we look at everything in a positive way, and we're going to be united, there's a chance that we're going to redeem now. Why? Because it's a month that let us do mistake. It's a month that confuses us. It's a month that confuses us in a physical way and in a spiritual way. The same like our sages, like our fathers in the wilderness made the mistake and made the golden calf. What made them do the golden calf? That they saw the bed. Hazal explained that they saw the bed of Moshe Rabbeinu flying in the air. They saw the bed of Moshe Rabbeinu, kivyachol, like he's dying, drafting in the air, like he's dead. He managed to confuse them. Immediately, what did they decide to do? They decide that they're going to take someone to be for them, to help them, okay, to connect between them and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that was the confusion. Hazal said, therefore, in a month of Tamuz, that it's a month, they call it Chodesh HaTa'atu'im. Ta'atu'im is the confusion. People get confused. Why? Because the evil inclination come to confuse us, to do averot, to judge everyone harshly, to judge everyone in a negative way instead of the positive way. Okay? Why? Because you know that if we judge everyone positively, there is a chance that we can bring the Mashiach. Why? Because this month, it's a month of light. There is a lot of spiritual light coming from heaven down to earth. Our greatest test in this month, are we judging people favorably or negatively? Are we judging HaKadosh Baruch Hu favorably? And whatever happened to us, we accept and we say it's all from Shamayim? Is our emunah strong in the Almighty? Is the way that we take things and we say, whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu given me, that's what is good for me. Instead of crying, instead of saying, if I wish that I have X, Y, Z, if I have that, I can do better. No, and this beside moment, what's good for you, it's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu given you. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu given you, if you understand that that's what's good for you, that's now seven Ishma. First of all, we listen. We listen. What it means to listen? Now I need to put the feeling. Nishma, after I put the tefillin, I have to understand what is the secret behind the tefillin. So if we say that we believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this month, if that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu given me, those tools that I have to compete with them, that's what's good for me. And that's what I look at it in a positive way and I say, now seven Ishma, then we'll see miracle. That Yemei Ben HaMetzarim, that's narrow pathway that we're walking. If we look at it with positive light, we'll see a miracle. But Has v'Shalom, if we cry, the same like happened to our fathers in the wilderness, they got a decree of Yom Tisha B'Av, a day to cry forever. But Rabotai, we have to end up with something positive. We know that in Tisha B'Av, Hazal tell us, is a Mo'ed. What it mean a Mo'ed? In Tisha B'Av, Rabotai, we don't say Tahanun. It's a festival day. Hazal tell us that the Mashiach born every Yom Tisha B'Av, on the 9th of Av, there is a potential Mashiach born. But the prophet Zechariah says something very interesting in chapter 8 and verse 19. Listen what it says. Hatzom HaRevi'i, Hatzom HaHamishi, Ve'Hatzom HaShvi'i, Ve'Hatzom HaAsiri, יהיה לבית יהודה לששון ולשמחה ולמועדים טובים והאמת והשלום אהבו. That means the prophet Zechariah already promised us that those fasts that we fasting, Tzom HaRevi'i, that's the fast of Yud Zayin B'Tamuz. The fast of Tzom HaHamishi, that's the fast of, no, help me, Tisha B'Av. The fast Hashvi'i, that's the fast of Tzom Gedalia. The fast, the Tzom HaAsiri, that's the fast of, the Tzom HaShvi'i, the Tzom HaAsiri, that's the fast of, Asara B'Tevet, okay? Those, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will turn all of those fasts to days of joys and happiness, and he will turn those days, a matter of fact, to festival. And what is the end? Ve'ayemet, and the true and the peace you must love. That means that how we can bring those days to become a better days, the Mefarshim explain that we judge everyone favorably, we live in unity and peace one with each other. That's how we can change the month of Tamuz, that it's a month of confusion, to a better month, a month of light, a spiritual light, in a physical life and in a spiritual life. That means if we look at everything positively, these months can be the best months. Be'ezrat Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will turn these months to us, the months of Tamuz, the months of Av, and the months of Tevet. He will turn them to better months, months that we can benefit and we can see the light. And Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see that we judge everyone favorably in our house, in our society, in our congregation, and we look at the positive light that can come from these months. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send us speedily, Mashiach Titkenu speedily in our day. Amen. If there is any question, please unmute your microphone and ask. Bechavod.
Rabbi Frank.
Erev Tov, Frank, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. Just one observation. You were saying in the northern hemisphere, it's hot and all the blessings will come. But now we are in the southern hemisphere. So how does that help us?
How's it reflecting us? So you're asking how's it reflecting the northern hemisphere? You have to understand, when I say northern hemisphere, I'm referring not only just to the northern hemisphere, I'm referring to Eretz Israel. Because if we daven, okay, when we daven towards the north. The north is Eretz Israel. What I'm trying to say, it's not necessarily the northern hemisphere. I'm referring to Eretz Israel, that all the light that's coming, you think that the light coming now in Switzerland? HaKadosh Baruch Hu not interested about them. Or in Europe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu interested about Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel is the center of the world. That's where he's gonna bring those spiritual light. So the spiritual light can affect the south, the north, anywhere. In those months, we can absorb the light that Eretz Israel gets. I just mentioned the northern hemisphere because Israel is in a part of the north. It's not in the south hemisphere. You follow what I'm saying?
But we face Eretz Israel, so we get that light.
For sure. When the Mashiach comes, you think that it's gonna be the north, the south, the east, the west? No. The Mashiach comes, he's gonna be control of all the four sides of the world. He's gonna bring the south, the west, the east, the north. All of them gonna benefit. You follow? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu gonna bless the blessing and the coming of the Mashiach. You follow? So I'm referring to Eretz Israel. Pleasure. Any other question? Any other question, Rabota, if you want to ask regarding the show? Bechavod?
Rob, how are you, Rob?
How are you, Ivan?
All good. So you talk about Tamuz being the time to increase spirituality side of ourselves, but what happens to the physical while we're here? So is it if you start a new thing or a new relationship or a new job or a new business or whatever, how is that physical, the tangible work or things that you do every day, do they improve as well? And how does the spirituality affect the physical in Tamuz? Because it's always regarded as a sad month and a bad month, bad 3 weeks, I mean.
Very good, very good. So how does that reflect? Because we know during the 3 weeks, we shouldn't be in Simcha. We don't have marriages, we don't get married. But from the other way, we do get engaged. If there is a couple that want to get engaged, we're allowing it. But we're not allowed the Simcha. Why? Is it different? We have to understand that to start a relationship, we allow to get connected. But it's not the time now of simha. Why? Because during those 3 weeks, we explained that many tragedies happen in a Jewish history, to the Jewish people. And the months of Av, also 5 tragedies happen, if not more, that the Hazal speak about it. Okay, but here we have to understand that if you need, for example, to have a job and you have an opportunity, you can't delay the job. It's the same like getting engaged. You got a chance, take it. Don't hold into it. But what Hazal said, don't get married, it don't start something new. Like you have a business now focus on one thing. Now it's the time to focus on a spirituality, okay, on a positive. Don't start new business now, because that might gonna confuse you and might gonna make you confused and making mistake with your decision. You follow, Ivan? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, got it.
You understand? So it's time now to hold what we have, to improve it, and without to move on. But if you need, for example, to build a new relationship, to find a wife, when I say, you're allowed to get engaged. But the simha, leave it when? After Tisha B'Av. That you're not going to get confused now. That's what globally, in big, that's what they try to teach us. That the months, those 3 months, Yemei Ben HaMetzarim, they're very narrow early. And it's easier for us to get confused. Tamuz is a very confusing month. Okay? It can cause us to make a mistake without even realizing that we make a mistake. Therefore, Hazal come and say, focus on your spirituality. When I say spirituality, it's on your spiritual life, but also on your spiritual, physical life, if it makes sense. That means focus how you behave with other people. How's your derech eretz? Focus that you uplift other people. Don't bring them down. Look at everything in a positive. Judge everyone positively. Now it's not the time to do, now it's not the time for adventure. Let's call it like this. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to get to. You follow?
Yeah. Is this the same period where we say don't do contracts with Gentiles or other people, or is that?
No. It's the time that if you have a dispute with a Gentile, don't go to court with them.
Oh, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just couldn't remember that. Yeah. Thanks. You
understand? That's what you're trying to get to, I think. So, yeah. Any other question, Rabotai? Bechavod, please unmute your microphone and you can ask. Bechavod? No question. Okay. But I would like to thank all of you. Thank you very much for joining the show. I hope that you enjoy. Keep yourself warm. There's 2-3 days of cold weather that we hear about, that you all hear about it. Be'ezrat Hashem, that we take the opportunity now to build ourselves, to look at everything positively. If sometimes things look bad, look at everything from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We must understand whatever happened to us, it's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu given it to us, we have to look at it in a brighter light. There's a reason for it. And Be'ezrat Hashem, that if we have the emunah to understand that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu then look at us and will give us more opportunity and will shine the light of us. And then he'll send Mashiach Tzidkenu speedily in our day. I wish you all a beautiful week ahead, a beautiful, safe week, a warm week. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will meet on Thursday night in a show at 8 o'clock. In the meantime, I would like to thank all of you. Have a beautiful night. Thank you for joining us. Good night, everyone.